I was a freshman in college.
Yeah.
So 18-year-old Molly decides, I'm going to go to Georgia Southern. I met you like my second day of college.
Really?
Yeah, I met you at Eagles Night Out, playing spike ball and volleyball with Steven. And you may or may not know this. When I went to college, I was like, golly, I'm raised as a church kid. Like, I don't really want too much to do with the Lord. Like, I'm just trying to, like, finally have some freedom. And I get to college, and, like, on day 2, I meet you. And I'm like, had no clue you were part of a ministry or anything. And started playing, like, beach volleyball every single night with you and this whole group of college students, Bex, everybody. And when I found out y'all were part of a college campus ministry, I was, like, a little mad. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I couldn't even have a few days of just, you know, the Lord was definitely doing a work, and he was chasing me in that way. But I was like, no. I don't want to, not again. Like, I just don't want to do this whole church thing. You know, I had no clue what y'all are about. But throughout my first semester of college, going on retreats, fall retreat with you, and this campus ministry, getting involved, I really realized, like, these girls are the real deal. Like, y'all value discipleship. You value being intentional with people. And it was around October that I actually rededicated my life to the Lord. And you had shared the gospel with me a few times, and Bex also had shared it with me. And I remember she sat me down and said, do you know what the gospel is? And I stopped her, and I was like, oh, I grew up in church. And she said, that's not what I asked you. And I was like, oh. And she was like, what is the gospel? And I was like, yeah, like I go to church. She's like, that's not what I asked you. And I was so embarrassed. I was like, wait, I can't even, like, my pride was getting so in the way of just being like, I don't know. I'm raised in church. Should I know what the gospel is? And so between her and you, I just remember, like, I just kept getting fed, like, this true, simple gospel. And in October, when I finally rededicated my life to the Lord, I remember coming to a weekly meeting with our campus ministry, and one of the girls you were friends with, somehow word had got to you. Like, Molly has rededicated her life to the Lord. She got saved, whatever. And I remember walking in the room, and I made eye contact with you, and you walked over, and you literally might not even remember this. You gave me the biggest hug, and you were like, I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. Like, I had just won the lottery or something.
Oh, man.
And I remember, whether you know it or not, since that day, that moment stuck with me. And I look back, even through my life now, I look back and remember how much of a celebration it should be when somebody comes back to the kingdom, when somebody really starts truly living for God. And I always use that as an anchor point for myself of, this is something to be celebrated. Like, in that moment, Sam was so happy for me because she was like, your life just got transformed, whether I knew it or not. Like, there was something you knew that was like, her life is going in the right direction now. So I'm definitely thankful for that. But the reason I also wanted you here is because after that point, I watched you with other girls. I watched you play volleyball many of nights on campus, beach volleyball, just trying to connect with people. But I also saw your heart for discipleship, and I saw that you did not just leave people to fend for themselves or figure it out themselves. You actually walked alongside people. You encouraged people. You weren't just trying to recruit for a ministry. You were trying to recruit for, like, hey, I want you to live a life of joy and a life of peace. And personally, that changed my life. And when people ask me about that season of my life, whether you've known it or not for the past 8 years, I have truly pinpointed those moments at fall retreat, at weekly meetings, flag football games, good Lord, intramurals, whatever it may be, and just think back to that is the picture of what I knew or what I know now as simple obedience. And you've done mission trips, like, you've done these great and more radical things, and you've probably changed lives there too. But to me, when I look at my life, I go, the most radical thing Sam probably ever did whether people see it or not, to me, the most radical thing she ever did was just ask me what the gospel was. And the most radical thing she ever did was on her way to class, sending me a text, hey, are you coming tonight? Because not only has that changed my life, but now every life that I've had the opportunity to pour into, it's like this tree that just keeps like growing more branches and branches and branches. And so I just want to talk a little bit about that concept of multiplication, of simple obedience. Like there's so much to be said about that, but maybe just talk a little bit about your journey in college when it came to your willingness to just kind of, was it always easy for you to kind of step out and do that? Do you just love connecting with people? Like, how did you get that heart for, I just want to see people come back to the Lord and experience joy?
Yeah, I mean, you're doing right now with others what you said, like I did with you, because it was done with me. And Jesus was the ultimate example. He connected, he met people where they were. He did it in unorthodox ways. And it's convicting hearing you talk about our interactions and stuff, because even now as I'm processing through that, like, it's not what my life looks like today. I'm not going on the college campus or going out and meeting random people, sharing the gospel the same exact way I did then. But the Lord is still using it. And I mean, I had this one person who reached out to me when I wasn't looking to be as invested in the Lord as he is in me. And I will never forget her. And it was my freshman year too. And so I think that excited me, and I saw and experienced the change that I had, and I wanted it for anybody I met. And it was so fun. Like, I don't know. I think the Lord created me in a way that I do enjoy talking to people. I enjoy connecting. I enjoy hearing their stories. And that was, I mean, the campus ministry we were part of, like we did it in more active ways, and that was fun for me. And so, but just, I don't know, it just seems so far away. So it's just crazy. You're like talking about it and bringing up all these memories.
You're like having flashbacks.
Yes. And it's so, I don't know, it's exciting. And I was saying it was convicting because I was tempted to think, man, I'm not doing that anymore. And yeah, maybe there's something to lean into there. But when you talk about simple obedience, it's like, okay, where does the Lord have me? The Lord has me as a wife, a mom. And I can tell you all day, my first ministry is my family. But when my husband is off on the college campus doing ministry, I seriously get some FOMO. And I miss it. And I was in teaching for a year, and I went back to campus ministry because even though I wasn't officially a part of the staff or anything on the campus ministry, I was very involved, where I was like, man, that lit me up. And teaching in the public schools, you can't talk about the Lord the same way. And so I was like, I want to go back to that. And I don't know what it is about college ministry. Maybe it's that's
something to you.
Yeah. And that's where I really, it's where I found the Lord in high school, but it's where I seriously started walking with him. And the Lord used me in ways that I had no idea. And just now I'm kind of learning, and maybe I'll never know, and maybe in heaven, we'll finally have eternity to figure out all the ways that the Lord used us. But I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think it's just the way the Lord used it for me, and I wanted it for others, and it was awesome.
You said something that is a really good point that I don't think people can sometimes fully grasp. You said, that's not where I am right now, and you weren't, a mom of 2 kids then trying to go evangelize on a college campus. You were a college student. So you evangelize to college students, and you're a mom. So you pour into those babies now. You're a wife, so you support your husband. And there's sometimes this misconception of once I've done college ministry or whether it's youth, whatever the category is, in this example, just college ministry, now the rest of my life, I'm just going to try to do college ministry. And it's no, I did college ministry because I was a college student. And now I'm going to do marketplace ministry because I'm in the marketplace. Or I'm going to be, family is my number one ministry now. And so I think that's really beautiful to just think of that concept as well, that you're just pouring into people where you are. And yeah, maybe there's a little bit of FOMO. But you know how people say, like, there's nobody like your first love? I'm like, that's how I feel with, like, evangelism. I'm like, there's nothing like that first, like, environment that you started sharing the gospel in. You feel all those feelings swell back in. And I remember in the ministry, the campus ministry, after I started getting discipled, I was like, you want me to what? Like, you want me to you want me to go in the library and, like, start talking to people? You want me to, like, write down this diagram in the middle of Chick-fil-A? Like, what are you asking me to do? But it's almost not that hard when you, like you said earlier, when you realize that's what changed my life, is somebody being just obedient and putting their pride down, and so it fuels you, like you said, to want to do it for somebody else in that way.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is, like, I should want that most for my kids. And I do. And I'm so thankful that I have the opportunity and privilege to be able to stay at home with my kids. That's, they're so little. I mean, it's 18 months and 2 months. So it's like, how much but we're talking to them, we're reading the Bible, they're going to church, and we're also living out the gospel. And, as I was reflecting on, like, what does simple obedience look like in my life today? It's getting up with a joyful heart and serving them breakfast with a joyful heart. They can sense when I'm anxious, when I'm agitated or frustrated or whatever, when I'm happy. And when they get frustrated, it's not getting frustrated, but taking a breath and meeting them, getting down literally on their level and just being patient. And I think they may not be able to articulate, oh yeah, my mom showed me the gospel in these ways when I was little, but Lord willing, the Lord will use that. And it's just, I have to remember that is just as powerful and useful as it was going up to a random stranger and sharing and articulating the gospel right then and there, or saying, hey, let's get coffee, let's talk about it. It's the same. And I have to remind myself of that because it's not easy to remember.
Right. And I think that sometimes it's so easy to go about your day and not realizing, especially as a mom, I'm sure you started noticing this, like, your kids will start to do what you do, or, like, if you're agitated, they'll pick up on it. And that, even, like, spiritually thinking, I would notice sometimes later on when I had the opportunity to become, like, a discipleship leader, how my dedication to the Lord would reproduce. The girls under me would go, if I'm never in my word, if they never see me pray, if they never see fruit, from my life, if I'm always agitated, I would notice my discipleship group was always dealing with the same things. And I started finding this weird concept. I'm sure you see it a little bit in motherhood too, that you're like, a lot of people say about leaders, you'll reproduce yourself. And maybe even if you haven't ever thought of it that way, do you feel like there was ever a moment in discipleship where maybe you pushed yourself harder because you knew people were looking up to you or watching?
I would think so. I'm trying to think back to it. I mean, yeah, for sure. You always want to put forth your best self, and sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for prideful reasons.
Yeah.
And whether it's people pleasing or, people wanting people to like you. But hopefully, it is it's like, well, if we're called to be Christ-like, what does that look like? And I don't know. I guess I just, a lot of life lessons are caught, not taught. And it's so easy to, I'm sure as a mom, to think, like, do what I say, not as I do. And I think that's a lot of the world, whether people are doing things behind closed doors that they shouldn't be, and then they're going out. That just didn't resonate with me. Yeah. I think could pick up on that pretty easily. And so I didn't want that for others, and I didn't want that I didn't want to be a hypocrite, even though I am. Like, I'm a sinner. So, but I knew that I would not be living faithfully if I were to say, like, yeah, all right, we're going to read the scriptures, but I wasn't doing it myself. I think a big thing too that stood out was I was always wanting to be vulnerable, knowing that that could potentially open up doors for other people to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm one of those people who likes to get deep fast, like, you know, let's have deep conversations. And
You give me and Sam like 30 seconds. I remember I would show up to like family nights or something, and we'd like pass by, hey, how are you, hug? If we sat there for about 30 more seconds, we were already in deep conversation.
Yeah.
Like we're just cutting to the chase. You know, we're getting straight to the point. How's your week been? What's God teaching you? Or maybe it's like, tell me, like, how can I pray for you? What are you, you know, not in a weird way, but like, what are you struggling with? How can I support you and help you? And I used to always be like, oh, Sam, there she is. Like,
well, that's sweet, 'cause not everybody likes
I love the breath of fresh air. I just always knew, like, I just don't do shallow either. And so I like kind of, let's skip some of that. If I already know you, let's just skip that and let's be so real right now. Like, I also think there was a lot of comfort in knowing once I rededicated my life to the Lord, there was this process I was going into of sanctification. And I found so much comfort in like some of the older girls and like the juniors and seniors knowing what that process, that's a hard process for some people. And knowing that it's probably going to be a hard process for me, watching me have to just die to my flesh constantly, follow what God has for me, encouraging me to go on things like the summer project or CCP, whatever it is. And that everybody stood right at my side and was like, we don't have interest in just watching you become converted and not walking with you after that. But seriously, not even just trying to flatter you. Like, I'm being so serious. From a perspective of girls that were in my grade as well, we just knew like there was something different about your class, some of the ones around you, like some of those older girls right when we came in. There was just something different about y'all when it came to discipleship and y'all's heart for discipleship. And as passionate as all of y'all were about evangelism, you were just as passionate of let me walk with you through what it looks like to live a godly life.
So when I got converted in high school, it was, you know, it was like a huge church. And so, but I also was very involved in sports. And so I got converted, praise God, but because I was very invested in volleyball, I didn't have time to get in small groups or anything. And just being a bigger church, not that there's anything wrong with it, but being a bigger church, it's harder to get plugged in. You have to really make the effort. Yeah. It was really cool. My parents also were newly converts. So it was just, we were all learning together for the first time. We didn't understand that importance. So then when I went to college my freshman year, I was like, okay, I'm going to go be a light on the college campus. Yeah. But I had no instructions. I didn't know how. And so it was the opposite. Like my mom always told me growing up, tell me who you're with and I'll tell you who you are. Yeah. And that is such a great life lesson, whether you're a Christian or not, it's true. And so the people who I was around were not Christians. And I fell into people pleasing and just did the things of the world that were not glorifying to God at all. And I knew, like, I would go to bed each day and like, I feel stuck and just really down, and I didn't know how to get out of it. Yet at the same time, someone was pursuing me, and I was just like asking me to come over to make dinner and just asking how my day was. And I was like, this is weird. Why is this person, and they were on staff. So I was like, why are they doing this? But I'll take a free meal, whatever.
Oh, free meals? The
Exactly.
family nights? I'm like,
yeah,
I will be there.
I know. I mean, there's something about free food. So I guess I just like, it was shown to me before I even realized what it was. It wasn't maybe discipleship in the way that it looked like with one-on-one like Christian discipleship when they're believers, but she was just living her life in a way that was just honoring, glorifying to God, and it was attractive, and I wanted it. So I think it may have started there without me even realizing it. And then when I went on the summer project, that's when I learned like, oh, this is what my life could look like. And it's because I am in the Word and being held accountable by these girls around me who also love the Lord, who are also sharing their vulnerabilities and their sin. I want that. And so, I mean, like I said, it was caught and it was also taught. And so then I think when I went to college after that summer, I was just like, I I just craved it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like that life of freedom, that life, especially being in college and walking seriously with the Lord for the first time. I was still young enough and able to remember a lot of my growing years. And it wasn't like I lived a fine life, but it wasn't for the Lord. And I could just see the difference. Like, even though I was just comfortable in the world and I didn't want that. And so, yeah, I think it was just gradual. And then once I saw that it was like an opportunity for other college students to have the same thing, I wanted it.
Yeah. It's a vulnerable thing to enter into discipleship, and it's a vulnerable thing to disciple.
Yeah.
I completely agree. There was so much vulnerability that I had to put on the table in order to really let it all out and say, like, I want somebody to walk with me through discipleship. I want leadership in this area. You have to meet with these girls and be held accountable and be like, this is where I'm struggling. I'm going to admit I need help. But on the flip side, once you get to that point to where they go, okay, we want you to now lead a discipleship group, then you're like, oh my gosh, I have to still be vulnerable, even as a leader, to all of these girls who I'm watching go through the thing that I just went through. Yeah. I was able to go on one of the summer projects as well, and as a room leader. And so instantly I was like 2 weeks in, the girls, like, it wasn't like an intervention, but the girls, I was like, how could I be better? I want to be the best leader for y'all. And they're like, we'd like for you to be more vulnerable. And I was like, oh gosh. I was like, that sounds like the worst thing ever. Like, I do not want to be vulnerable. And because I thought, like, as a leader, I'm not supposed to show those things. Like, discipleship means I'm supposed to live this perfect life and then tell y'all how to do it too. And that is the biggest lie, to assume that as a mentor and as a discipleship leader, that you have it all figured out. And I think even with you personally, I probably learned so much from watching you not have it all figured out. And you you coming into the room and not only asking me how I was, but to turn around and be like, yeah, I struggled this week too. And then I felt, oh, Sam isn't just, she's somebody I look up to, but she's not just somebody who's telling me what to do. She's letting me in on her struggles, and she's letting me in on what she struggles with, so that I can see the Lord is going to work in her life in that way. Because then when you see the Lord start working in people's lives that you're walking alongside or leading in terms of discipleship, I mean, it's rewarding to see people get saved, but it does the same thing for me when I see people living a life of discipleship, like watching them walk into sanctification and watching them just be purified in the Lord. That's so rewarding. And I think CO ruined me, the campus ministry. I think it ruined me. And now I look back and I go, I'm the sucker for discipleship. Like, I can't help it. Everybody that talks to me, I'm like, no, it's about discipleship. I'd rather lead a small group than, some people are like, I can't wait to, preach. And I went to ministry school. So some people are like more focused on, I want to be a pastor. I want to do this. And I'm like, I want to be with 3 girls. I want to be with 3 or 4 girls, because that's what changed my life. I've heard lots of sermons. I grew up in the church, sermons left and right. There were encounters I had with the Lord that changed my life, but what changed my life was discipleship. Yeah. And what changed my life was people on a college campus drawing on a napkin in Chick-fil-A this diagram of this bridge,
awesome. I laugh because Gunther still does that.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, it's a good,
it works.
It works. I'm not going to lie. It works. And what's crazy, maybe I should reach out to Bex and tell her, I still have it.
That's awesome.
I should have brought it. I literally still have the first time somebody got out and drew a diagram for me of, here's man, here's God, Jesus is the bridge. Are you on man's side? Are you on God's side? And I remember that moment like it was yesterday, and I still have the so diagram, cool, which is super sweet that I get to look back on that. We'll have a reunion on a different podcast.
I hope so. That would be fun.
Invite a bunch of people and talk about discipleship.
Here, yeah.
Literally. I watched you get married, so I watched you join lives with somebody else, and who I know has a similar heart. But how have y'all seen that come together, like in your marriage, to push each other in that way for ministry?
It has been a ride. It's been good. I'm trying to think. So, I mean, when we got married, we, for different reasons, really turned our focus to the church. One big reason was because while the Lord uses campus ministry, it's going to be over when you're done with college. Yeah. So the church is always there. It's we knew that we needed to make that transition, and so he was working with with youth, and I kind of got to help with that. And I think it kind of started there, where we took a lot of what we learned in that campus ministry and wanted to have it done with the youth ministry. And youth and college students are very different. And and it was good. It was so challenging and sanctifying, but it's, I mean, you grew up in the church. Like if you went to church, it was probably because your parents like, we're going to go to church. It wasn't, I'm going to go to, I mean, maybe it was, and praise God.
It wasn't, sadly.
And so you're talking to a different kind of audience. And so I think the Lord over the years has really, whether it was in our marriage or, the kind of, I guess, the demographic of ministry that he had us focusing on has shown us and stripped us of some ways of like, discipleship is great when it looks like this, but it's also great when it looks like this. And sometimes that meant, and this is a little similar, but like just having students over for games and them knowing that we lived for the Lord, and but not necessarily like every conversation having a spiritual focus. I think it did mean a lot to them. I'm slowing down because I even now I have that struggle, because I do think that, at least from our perspective, we need to have that in the background of like looking and praying for spiritual opportunities and conversations. But it doesn't mean it's a loss if they came and left just because we didn't talk about Jesus explicitly, and showing them that we were always there for them. I mean, that's really something I think both of us struggled with. We were tempted to think like, man, are we even doing what the Lord wants? Like, this feels like such a waste. Like, are they even listening? And just constantly, but even now, like there's this girl who goes to Covenant, and she's a senior in college, and I met her when she was in 8th grade. And it was similar, where I was just like, I didn't think she liked me. And she was like, no, she was just really shy. And she was an 8th grader. And she was like, I just was shy. And anyway, just to see how the Lord uses even those simple conversations. And in marriage, I mean, it's been hard because sorry, that sounded bad. Marriage has been good, but the discipleship and the ministry has been hard because I was here and he was here, and we were on fire for the Lord, and then we came together. Satan hates that. Yeah. And so we've seen a lot of spiritual warfare going on in our home, in our lives, that the Lord has protected us, and it's been very hard, but it's also been very good, because hear me out, this sounds really bad, but like I almost get excited when Satan attacks. And that is the weirdest, scariest thing, because that affirms my faith all the more. Because it's like,
there's something to attack.
Yes, exactly. And so to see that, like the fact that Gunther and I have been able to see that together has grown us closer together, even in times when we are exhausted, or in times when he's going to seminary and he's like, why do I feel so distant from the Lord? And why do I feel so? It's like, well, that makes sense. And that means that like we need to go to our knees all the more. We need to go to each other and like really communicate. It's like, of course, we're going to have this biggest spiritual attack when he finally finishes seminary and gets ordained, and we have a new child who's going to be brought into this world, into a Christian home. Like, of course, it's going to be one of the hardest times. Yeah. And now, just freshly being kind of on the other side of that, it's like a weight has been lifted. It was the craziest thing. So I'm rambling now, but I just feel like it's been almost 8 years of like just back and forth. But I know that we're constantly like, we need to love the Lord more than one another. And that's often not the case, and I have to constantly repent of that. But I think in times when the Lord has shown us victory over that. It's been really sweet.
Yeah. I think it's funny to hear you talk about your experience with youth because
Yeah.
You're saying like, are we going to do anything? You know, that the whole method. And I'm sitting here listening going, Sam, your method didn't change. Like, that's what you did with me.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what
I'm sitting here listening going like, I didn't know for like, I think I played volleyball with you like every single night for the first week of my college experience and had no clue that you loved Jesus at all. That's not because, okay, that sounded bad. The gospel was not shared with me in that first week of like in the middle of playing volleyball. Something happened, like you said, maybe you're a youth. That's so funny. I knew something was different.
It's okay.
It wasn't because you wore a I Heart Jesus shirt. But watching you play volleyball and watching like Bex and Adam and all these people, I was like, they're not like cussing each other out.
Yeah.
Like they're laughing. Like, I'm a sore loser. And I'm like, we just lost that game. What is funny? Like, what's funny about this? And I'm like, y'all know each other? Like, I was getting so confused. And I can imagine, even from a youth perspective, like, you and Gunther are so, you're so good at that. It's just like this, we can have a good time. And we don't have to sit down every time and open our Bibles and, you know, read through the book of Revelation to know that we did something productive, you know, spiritually. Because the reason I think that you were able to pour into my life spiritually so much is because relationally there was a connection there. Like I played volleyball with this girl. She's a good time. I love talking to her. And then when you have something to say spiritually, like I receive that better. And I think people limit ministry to just like preaching, and they limit ministry to, not to sound contradictory, because we talk a lot about evangelism on here and sharing the gospel. You know, I'm not saying that's an excuse to not flat out share the gospel with somebody. But building that relationship ahead of time it's so spiritual in a way. It's fellowship. It's community. Like, that is biblical. That is spiritual. And developing, like you said, those game nights. Oh my gosh. Like, that's what kept me around until the Lord got a hold of me. You know, what kept me coming around with all those people while the Lord was doing a work in my heart was that community, those game nights, so that the enemy couldn't just isolate me and undo all the seeds that people had poured into me. It was this, I want to fellowship with you. I want to spend time with you. And I'm sure that even happens. I've only been married a few months, but even in marriage, like, discipleship looks different, but it looks like that sharpening of one another too. Like, we're going to spend fellowship together. And then sometimes we are sitting down and reading scripture and sharpening each other. Like, you might not have a discipleship leader anymore. The older you get and you're married and have kids, like, now you're the leader, but your spouse is able to help in that discipleship process. That might sound weird, but
no, I think even as the wife, you know, I feel like I always have kind of like this sounds weird, but like a discipleship leader. Like, he's my husband. I go to him for advice and counsel and wisdom, and he is called to lead me in that way, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's awesome. And I was reflecting as you were talking about these opportunities of having people in our home. That's another way. I think in campus, in Campus Outreach, like, they did a good job of, like, we had houses to go to. Yeah. Even if it was a college home. But then you said, like, family night, like, we went to my mother-in-law's house, and that was cool. And the Lord showed us hospitality, whether it was like him going into people's homes or people like congregating together. And I think being a hospitable person, I've had to learn, how does that look every day? Whether it is like us having, I have one of my best friends that I met in seminary. She was single at the time, and we lived about 30 minutes outside of the city. And she would just say, like, I just want to come over and just like be in your home, because it is a step away from everything. And not to brag about us, but because she had not yet been married, like, she would talk about, like, I just learned so much just being in the presence of like a married couple and things that I didn't even realize. Yeah. And also her seeing, like, you know, when and where I sin, and just like, you know, me.
Is that scary though?
Is what scary?
Like, people noticing things about you, and you're like, oh gosh, you saw that? Like,
I think it
like,
can
do you
be.
recognize they're seeing those things, or is it like afterwards?
I think when it comes to my close circle, my inner circle, I'm almost kind of like, please see me mess up so that I can also, it's one of those things that I told you earlier, like I was vulnerable so that you felt like you could be vulnerable. And not just so that, like I think the Lord can use that, but also, I mean, if I just met some random person, they saw me mess up, I'd get embarrassed and I blushed and, would not want that. I don't like that. But if it's like people I love and care about and know, or people who it's an opportunity to minister to, I think it's just so, pride is everywhere. And I struggle with pride constantly, but the opportunity for me to sin against Gunther, my husband, and then also in that same breath or day, just be like, I'm sorry, that was wrong. And just doing it in front of them. It's like, oh, wait, you're apologizing. I don't know. Just like, not that they need to see all of our stuff, but to be able to be like, I messed up. And he still loves me and I still love him and we'll move on. I don't know. I just think that's the gospel lived out.
I was just about to say, because that's the gospel. Like you don't get, I hope this isn't like controversial. I think this is pretty sound. Correct me, Sam. You don't have the gospel without sin.
Right. You can't, what is the good news if there's no bad news? I know. Yeah.
Like you can't have the gospel without having something that needs to be wiped away. You can't have, he washed my sin white as snow if there's no sin. And so do we always want our stuff out there and should it always be? No. But to truly emulate the gospel to people, and I like the word emulate for a lot of reasons, but to truly emulate the gospel, there's a first half to the gospel where it's like, for the wages of sin is death. We'll go back to the bridge that me and you can quote like nobody's business. But there's the gift of eternal life, before the scripture states, but the wages of sin is death, and it's scary sometimes to be vulnerable, but at the same time, like you said, that you get the full gospel message and people see the full gospel message in your life when you're able to show, hey, I do need things wiped clean. I do need forgiveness of Christ. I need the righteousness of Christ, because on a daily basis, your girl would struggle without the Lord helping me. So I think vulnerability is more than just, let them see so that they can trust you. I think it's a pure depiction of the gospel more than anything. Yeah.
And I think the Lord clearly uses that. He can use anything and he does, but when we're doing it for him and not for ourselves, for sure. So,
and in weird ways, sitting here talking to you, I'm realizing there's things in my life now that I'm not even piecing together until this very moment that you emulated into my life. You didn't have to invite me places. You didn't have to stay up till midnight playing beach volleyball some nights. Like you didn't have to, come to meetings and text me and all these things. Even at retreats, you didn't have to spend time with me or keep up with me. But you did. And that is simple obedience. And whether you realize it or not, and whether people who are listening realize it or not, simple obedience isn't always drawing the gospel on a napkin. Sometimes it's involving people in your life. Sometimes simple obedience is a text message. Because Jesus preached a lot of sermons, but he also just walked a lot of steps alongside his disciples. He didn't only open his mouth when he was preaching a sermon to them. It was the day-to-day, eating meals together, cracking jokes together. I like to think of it that way. I don't know. Jesus was a man. Like he preached and did miracles and signs and wonders, but he also just did normal life with his disciples. And they saw a side of Jesus that not everybody who heard his sermons saw of him. And I think that it's so important to realize sometimes discipleship and sometimes evangelism looks like a game night. Sometimes it looks like a text message. And sometimes it looks like a study session if you're a college student, which I probably said no to those because I'd rather have a game night than a study session. But sometimes it looks like volleyball, But I think at the end of the day, we have to broaden our perspective of what evangelism looks like and what discipleship looks like. Because like you said, I'm not a college student forever. So I could sit here and 20-year-old Molly could sit here and go, this is how you do evangelism. Because that's where I was at in life. You ask me now, and I'm not in college, I probably have a way different understanding of what evangelism looks like. And like you said earlier, I mean, I get convicted sometimes of, oh gosh, am I being as obedient now as I used to be? I think so. I think it just looks a lot different. And so I always love to encourage people, exactly what you said, where you're at is where the Lord puts you to evangelize, you know?